Welcome to the 12thmanrising.com podcast with myself, Lee, and as always, Kevin Daggett is with me. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
Doing great. And we are produced and engineered by the great Rob Still of Coil Entertainment. So, Seahawks had a bye week last week. That means you and I also had kind of a bye week. We, didn't have to watch TV or watch football games, but we probably both did. So, what'd you do in your bye week?
I watched some games. I got the Sunday ticket, watched some games, but I tell you what, it is nice to sit back and not really have to worry about things. when your team's not playing, it's just you can kind of sit back and relax a little bit and not get anxious about things.
Yeah, it's almost who we're pulling against instead of pulling for in bye weeks. There's certain teams like the Patriots that I don't really want to see win, even though I thought they'd win. I mean, they've turned a corner, but and the Cardinals and 49ers played each other, and it was like, both those teams stink. And at this point, really the Seahawks are not playing against the Rams as far as trying to get to the playoffs. They're playing against the rest of the field in the NFC because they're not going to win their division, so they're hoping to get in with a wild card, which they can do. They're 3-3. They play a 3-3 Detroit team this coming Sunday in Detroit. Detroit is favored by 3 points. But this is a game that Seattle could easily win. Detroit's run defense is not very good, and the Seahawks, even though Odds Shark, who Fansided likes to use for who they use for betting numbers, I guess, lack of a better way of saying that. In their write-up, Odds Shark said, the Seattle running game is inconsistent and has limitations, and therefore they think that that running game will hold Seattle back from winning the game on Sunday. And I'm thinking, has Odds Shark watch the Seahawks play this season? Because there's a lot of reasons Seattle may not win on Sunday, but the running game is not one of them, is it?
No, I don't think so. And they've, like we talked about last week, I mean, the first couple games of the season seemed to be just let's fill this thing out and see what's going on. And now they seem to have clicked a little bit, and the running game hasn't been a problem the last few games. So maybe that report came out a few weeks ago.
Yeah, maybe that could be it. I mean, it could be. They do put the thing about how they're playing against the line and things like that. And Detroit is 5-1 against covering the last 6 weeks for whatever that's worth. But I thought the run thing was in the last 3 weeks. Seattle is second in the NFL behind only the Rams in rushing offense. So they've turned a corner there. They basically forget those first 2 weeks as we talked about last week. The last 4 weeks, 4 games at least, is really what Seattle was supposed to be this season, and have gotten to do it, and they've been really successful doing it. And I think they really look good. Again, winning on the road is difficult. Again, going into Detroit, they're not a great team, but they're not a bad team. Seattle could easily lose, but I don't think it's because of a lack of a rushing game. That seems silly. It could be that Seattle's secondary is still young enough, and Matthew Stafford is able to take advantage of, with Golden Tate and the weapons he has, offensively, that they are able to control the clock instead of Seattle controlling the clock, and therefore they win. But it's an early game, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Of course, the Seahawks should be extremely rested after not playing on Sunday. Of course, Seattle under Pete Carroll has not done great in 10 a.m. games, but it's not really an East Coast game, so the travel isn't as far. But do you think that time difference, instead of 1 p.m., it's 10 a.m. Pacific time, do you think that's going to affect Seattle at all?
I think it always has some effect. I don't know how big the effect is. It is kind of weird. I mean, it's not a West Coast game. It's a Midwest game. So I don't know why I guess they have to play. Somebody has to play early. Is that 3-point spread? That's probably just a home field advantage, isn't it? I mean,
yeah, I think most teams get 3 points given 3 points. So say the Patriots play, the Lee Vowell losers. I think that I would get, if I was at home, I'd get 3 points. So the Patriots would be favored to win like 58-3. Well, only 58. That's not bad. Anyway, but 58-3 because I would get 3 points.
Unless you're the Raiders, you might not get that home field advantage, but home field score. But
well, I don't know. I mean, 3 though, it's like, if you're favored by, if you are favored to lose at home by 7, they really think you're going to lose by 10. So I think that's kind of how it works.
Yeah, but yeah, that time's always a factor. I mean, it's a deal, but I think when you, like you said, they're rested up, they're professional athletes. I guess they'll probably get to town and get on the, a couple days early and try to get squared away. But I think it's always a little bit of a factor. So the time.
Yeah, so if looking at the standings right now for the NFC, if the season were to end today, the teams that would make the playoffs would be the Rams, Saints, Redskins, which is weird. Who had that? Vikings, Panthers, and Packers. But the Redskins are 4-2, Vikings are 4-2, the Panthers are 4-2, Packers are 3-2-1. Actually, the Vikings are 4-2-1. So in the loss column, really, Seattle's only half a game behind the Vikings and the Packers, who, of course, are in the same division and will have to play each other again. And then Seattle, of course, plays the Vikings and Packers later in the year. So they have they can kind of control their own destiny as far as getting to the playoffs. And the Seahawks are the odd man out. They're the seventh seed, if you will. Currently, they win the tiebreak over Tampa Bay based on best win percentage. And again, we're only 6 games in, or for the Seahawks, 7 weeks for the NFL season, and these things are going to work themselves out. But currently, Seattle's in a lot better position, especially starting off 0-2, than I think a lot of people thought they were going to be. Right?
They're definitely better than I thought they were going to be after those first 2 games, and we play a couple of those teams, like you said, the Packers and the Vikes. So we'll see. The Packers seem to always be able to pull out a win. I guess it's Aaron Rodgers more than anything. The Vikings, I'm not totally convinced that they're one of the top teams in the NFC, but we got a chance. You're right. We are not playing for the NFC West, which is kind of weird. I mean, we're 6 games into the season, and everybody's pretty much conceded that to the Rams. I think everybody conceded that this summer, but
right.
I mean, it's a foregone conclusion unless there's something serious happens injury wise, but I don't think that's going to happen.
If Seattle were to lose this week, they'd be 3-4, still entrenched in second place, and they'd be 4 games behind the Rams if the Rams win. That's crazy when you think about it. The Rams are the only unbeaten team in the NFL, and they look really good. Kansas City has 1 loss, but they lost to the Patriots. Patriots have 2 losses. Steelers have only 2 losses, 3-2-1, which is weird because it seems like they haven't been very good. And the Texans have won 4 straight, so they're 4-3. And then the Chargers are 5-2, and of course the Seahawks play them as well. So the Seahawks have a bunch of teams. Of course, they get the Chargers at home. They play the Lions. They play the Packers. Nope. They play the Packers, the Vikings at home, Chargers at home. They play the Panthers, and they play the Lions, of course, on the road. So, 3 of those 5 games right there that could make a difference between making the playoffs and not. At least the majority of them are at home. And, of course, Seattle finishes with a whole bunch of games at home. Really, I think, 5 out of their last 6 or something like that. So they're in decent shape. So, talking about a little bit about next year, just because there's no bye week, or there is a bye week this past Sunday, so gives us some freedom to kind of look ahead. But, we talked contracts last week with Frank Clark. But, after this season, they're still going to have their quarterback. Russell Wilson's still there. He's signed through next year, and we'll see what happens. As far as running back, Mike Davis is an unrestricted free agent, and if a team is smart, they're going to offer him enough money where he leaves Seattle. I hope he stays, but I think that's a no-brainer. Chris Carson, of course, is signed through 2020 because he's got a 7th-round rookie contract he's playing out, and Rashad Penny is there through 2021. Some of the other, CJ Prosise, who really should be released, probably. He may even be released if J.D. McKissick comes back because Prosise can't stay healthy, is signed through next year as well. And then receiver pretty much set through 2022. They've got Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett's through 2021. Jaron Brown is through 2019. I guess the issue really starts to come to play on the defensive side because after this year, the great Deion Jordan, who can play every game, every snap, is a free agent. Would you try to sign? Jordan's making $1.9 million. Would you spend any ounce of energy trying to re-sign this guy?
No, I wouldn't either. And I want to point something out. This, this has been a thorn in my side since they cut him. But, the Seahawks never gave, in my opinion, and it's not much of an opinion, doesn't hold any weight, but they never gave Alex Collins a drink of water on that team. They never gave him a shot. And he goes to Baltimore, and he's the starting running back out in Baltimore and playing real well. And that's real irritating to me because they went through a bunch of running backs to get to what they got now. But I think there's obviously a bunch of draft picks they screwed up on, but since after that 2012 draft. But I liked Alex Collins. I liked him in college. He was a tough running back playing in a real tough conference, and I don't think they gave him a shot. But yeah, there's a lot of question marks at the end of the year, and they've wasted a lot of money on some of these draft picks and these guys that are no longer with the team. And they didn't sign a lot. I think they should have re-signed Sheldon Richardson. I'm not sure what happened there, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the end of the year. I mean, obviously Thomas is going to be gone, but I think the defensive backfield's pretty. I mean, we're pretty good there, aren't we? I mean, as far as contracts goes, they're all young guys.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have to pay for Cam Chancellor, so it's going to hurt their cap space, but they're paying for him unless they negotiate some kind of buyout through 2020. And just for the record, Kevin did go to the University of Arkansas. But no, I'm just kidding. He didn't. That's a joke.
I just like that guy, man. I don't know why. Just, you get some players that you like, and it's like, man, I hate to see him go, but
yeah. No, I agree. Same thing with Tom Johnson. I mean, they let him go after week 1. I'm like, well, why? They could have still had him. It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, talking about the secondary, of course, Thomas won't be coming back, and they've played really well without him. And Tedrick Thompson actually looks like maybe he's not Earl Thomas, but he's playing really well, and he's signed through 2020. So is Shaquille Griffin and Bradley McDougald. So they're pretty much set. Trey Flowers, of course, who's playing better each week. It seems like it's going to be signed through 2021. So secondary should be set. It's just, the pass rush. If Frank Clark were to go down, for instance, I mean, they're doomed, and they have to re-sign him, I think, because they don't have any answers to get another pass rusher. Rasheem Green, who they have hopes for, hasn't really been able to be on the field long enough this season to do much. He's signed through 2021. Quentin Jefferson, he's played okay in spurts. He's a restricted free agent. And Brandon Jackson the same way, a restricted free agent. And Malik McDowell, of course, your favorite Seahawk, is
yeah.
Where's he? Still there. Well, I wonder what he is doing nowadays. Actually, that's kind of interesting. But and Jaron Reed.
I don't even want to say because there's a lot of comments I can make about that, but I'll let it go.
Right. Yeah, but Deion Jordan's contract is up after this year, so is Frank Clark. Shamar Stephen, I don't know how you feel about re-signing him. His contract is up. So along the defensive line, that's where a lot of issues come up. And kj-wright, of course, his contract is up. But Wright's a great player, but they've sustained success without him this season. I think the other linebackers who have been filling in have done a really good job. Austin Calitro has played really, really well. In that. So it'll be interesting to see how Wright not fits in because he is the starting linebacker, of course, next to Bobby Wagner. But it'll be interesting to see if he makes a difference this Sunday. Like, kj-wright's back. I can clearly see, a difference between him and the other players. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I mean, the secondary set, running back set, quarterback is set at least through 2019, and then we'll have to see what happens with all the money involved, and the receivers are set. So, and even offensive line. I mean, Brown signed through 2021. Britt, hopefully he stays healthy and can play through that contract. Britt's signed through 2020. Jermaine Ifedi, who's, how much have we talked about Jermaine Ifedi this year? Not really at all.
I'm just gonna keep my mouth shut, let that one go, and keep doing what you're doing, bro.
Exactly. Yeah,
Dwayne Brown. Keep him under your wing, man, and keep him tight in there. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Keep Mike Solari as offensive line coach because clearly he's a lot better than Tom Cable ever was. I mean, the big questions are J.R. Sweezy and DJ Fluker. To me, they need to be talking to Fluker's agent now to try to get him extended.
That guy is a beast. I mean, Whew,
Yeah,
monster.
I liked his comments after the Rams game where in Ndamukong Suh, and he said, "Yeah, I was taking that guy to water," which is it's a very Southern phrase. I know in football it means you're supposed to block your guy off the line and you take him over to where the water coolers are, but people in the South
Right.
say taking him to water. That's a very Southern, and he played at Alabama. He's a Southern guy, but and it was funny because Ray Roberts was on 710 ESPN Seattle, and they're talking about DJ Fluker taking Sue to water during the Rams game. And Ray Roberts was like, I saw the film. He was taking him to the dance. He was taking him to the store. He was taking him wherever he wanted to take him, which is exactly what he was doing. I mean, Fluker was a beast that game. And really, overall, I mean, he has made a humongous difference. He's not the only guy, but weeks 1 and 2, he wasn't there. Since he's come back, they've been able to run the ball. I mean, he hasn't been a Pro Bowl player his entire career. He's not that old, but he's been with 3 different teams. The Seahawks are his 3rd team. This is a guy who needs to be, I mean, he's 27. Offensive linemen, if they stay healthy, can play years. This is a guy Seattle needs to keep under contract, as far as I'm concerned.
Yep, I would agree. Sweezy's still kind of a question mark, but I mean, he's a good lineman. It's Fant's playing a little bit. I mean, he seems to be coming in and reporting as a receiver, but hey.
I'm still waiting for him to throw him. They threw Tyrone Swoops the ball, but they should throw George Fant the ball too.
I bet they will sooner or later. They have to.
Yeah, I mean, it's just maybe it's too obvious. If it's obvious to us, probably obvious to the other team too. But yeah. I mean, at some point, I don't even know if he can catch. I know he used to be a tight end, but I don't know how much he actually caught the ball. But so clearly, Seattle has a game coming up this Sunday, a big game, 10 a.m. Pacific time game against the Lions. The Lions are averaging 31 minutes of ball control a game. Seattle is 28, but they've gotten a lot better over the last four weeks as well. Detroit is 30th, I think, in rush defense. And, of course, again, we've talked about Seattle being second the last 3 weeks in rushing offense in the NFL. Again, I mean, it goes back to, and this is no secret, but Seattle needs to run the ball to win, right?
Yeah, they have to. That's the kind of team they are. They're just set up that way. They kind of have been over the last few years. And, they got some receiving weapons, but, I mean, Russell Wilson's a good passing quarterback, and, the receivers are pretty good. But, yeah, you got to establish a run game before you can make the pass game successful, yeah.
Yeah, and it really almost goes back to the end of 2015, that second half of the season where Russell threw 24 touchdown passes and 1 interception. It was almost to the detriment of him and the team that he was so incredible, and he's still a great quarterback, but that he was so incredible that second half because it was almost like John Schneider was thinking, this could be our future. Mm-hmm. But that's not really how it should have ever been. And 2016, 2017, I mean, man, they made some, as you pointed out already, some really bad decisions.
Yeah.
As far as personnel. And Russell still, I mean, what he did last year when it was all him was phenomenal. I mean, you can't ask a quarterback to stay healthy, stay upright, lead the league in touchdown passes when you absolutely know as opposing defense that he's got to throw the ball. Mm-hmm. So it's, so no offense to Russell Wilson, but, his contract is coming up in 2020. It'll be interesting to see he's going to be north of $30 million, whoever signs him.
Yeah,
it's just how it is.
That's a good point. Whoever signs him.
Well, I mean, he should be in Seattle. I mean, he's the quarterback, and he's done a great job. And we haven't really talked about this, but it's kind of funny. Russell Wilson seems like a nice guy. I don't know him, but he seems like a very nice person. But his teammates don't seem to necessarily rally around him as a leader, whereas maybe they rallied around Marshawn Lynch, for instance. Or, I mean, they didn't even do it with Earl Thomas, really. Cam was the leader of the defense. It wasn't Earl Thomas. Yeah. And maybe it's, Doug Baldwin to some degree on the offense. But do you think there's any chance that maybe the personnel on the Seahawks team, I'm not saying they dislike Russell Wilson, but they don't seem to gravitate towards him as this charismatic leader. You think that would have any play into Seattle re-signing him?
It might. I think the management sees him as a leader, but the interesting thing that the 2 guys that you mentioned, they're pretty quiet guys. Marshawn Lynch, he didn't say much. I'm just here so I don't get fined. I mean, And then Cam Chancellor, he wasn't the real boisterous guy, but Thomas is. Russell Wilson, he's a nice guy. He's a good quarterback. He's a great athlete. He's a good leader. I think he's gotten involved a little more with the off-field stuff. Part of it because of who his wife is. But just some glitz and glamour stuff. And I don't know, maybe some of his teammates don't like that, but we'll see. That might play a factor in it. But I do think from a management standpoint, they see him as the leader of the offense. I mean, he's the captain, so
yeah, that's true. They vote the captains. Yeah, it's interesting. Doug Baldwin had this story. I think it was before the Raiders game. Of course, Marshawn Lynch is on IR. He probably will never play football again. He's probably he's an aging running back and probably won't ever play again, which is interesting that he would have played his last game against Seattle. But anyway, Doug Baldwin had this story when they said, "Hey, what did you think about Marshawn Lynch as a teammate?" And Doug Baldwin was like, "He was a great teammate." I said, there was a wide receiver, and you may have heard this story, a wide receiver who went up to Marshawn, a young wide receiver, rookie wide receiver, went up to Marshawn Lynch because Marshawn Lynch had this backpack on, and the wide receiver was like, that's an awesome backpack. And Marshawn Lynch was like, "Oh, man, you can have it," and took it off and gave it to the receiver, which, just because, hey, you're my teammate, you like it, you can have it. And I can't remember who was talking to Doug Baldwin about this, but they were like, "Well, who was that receiver?" And Doug Baldwin was like, "It was me." So I think that what we didn't see Marshawn Lynch talk a lot outwardly, obviously. What he did say, I think Seahawks fans loved because it was funny. He's a funny guy. And he was good in the community. He was a good guy. I mean, Marshawn Lynch was not any kind of troublemaker, but I think maybe what happened in what went on in the locker room, the players had a lot more affinity for Lynch than we would have ever seen because of how he treated his teammates, which is all you can really ask. So.
Well, I think Golden Tate would probably still be with the Seahawks if there wasn't locker room stuff going on. I mean, there's all kinds of stories behind that. But I mean, Marshawn Lynch is just a humble guy. He goes, he gets to the end zone, "I'll shake your hand. Thanks for I scored a touchdown. I'll shake your hand, but that's as far as I'm going to go." And
right,
that's just the kind of guy. Yeah, but he does do a lot of community stuff that I think people don't know about. But
yeah. And let's not forget Percy Harvin, phenomenal teammate. No, I'm just joking.
Yep, number one.
That's right. Beloved by every team he's ever played for, which is why he doesn't play anymore. So
him and Ocho Cinco.
Yeah, exactly. At least Cinco had he would play through pain. Hey, you know what? And now that we talk about Cinco playing and Percy Harvin really missing, I mean, what did he do that Super Bowl season? He ran the kickoff back and then Super Bowl.
That's it.
But do you
in a 42-point game?
yeah, exactly. It was funny because I was watching the game and a friend over, and it was halftime. And what was it? Halftime. I should know this. Was it 20 to nothing? I mean, it felt like it was 42 to nothing or something. And he was like, "Oh, if the Seahawks score early, I'll probably just go ahead and take off." So they kick off, and Percy Harvin runs the kickoff back and starts the second half. He was like, "Well, I guess I'll see you." So I mean, that game was over literally from the first snap of the game. But let me ask you this: just as far as players see other players play through pain, and I think they get a lot of they see those players playing through pain, and they get a lot of appreciation, respect from that, and then other players don't. And it makes you wonder just about CJ Prosise, who's been a healthy scratch the last 2 weeks, if maybe in the locker room, other players are seeing him when he not being a healthy scratch, but just being injured and then not playing. And you got to be thinking, well, this guy doesn't deserve to be on. And they would never say that, but this guy doesn't deserve to be on the team because he needs to be able to learn to play through pain if he wants to be on the team. You think that has anything? Do you feel like Prosise just doesn't want to play through the pain? Maybe he doesn't really want to play. But he's getting a paycheck, and other players are more injured a lot of times than he is, and they're playing through it.
Well, yeah, I would say that's possibly true. And I mean, they were talking about moving Prosise to a receiver, and I like that idea. I mean, he was a good receiver. He caught the ball well in college. It's like, what is a healthy scratch anyway? I mean, what the hell is that?
Means the team doesn't want you playing.
Exactly. So what? We're not can't put you on the field because if you get hurt, we'll be stuck with you, might be one thing, and they don't want to be stuck with the guy. But I mean, you said it earlier. Should he be cut? And I like the guy. I mean, I think he's a great athlete. He
seems like a nice guy.
Seems like a nice guy. Does he have the heart to play the game? I don't know. I mean, and you could say that about a lot of guys. I think they said that about what's that guy, Vanderbilt guy that played for the Bears.
Jay Cutler.
Yeah, Jay Cutler. I mean, Jay Cutler got ripped all the time for having a hangnail or whatever, and his left pinky's sore, so he doesn't want to play. It's like, does that guy have the heart to play in the game? But yeah, I don't know. It's a good point. Maybe he doesn't, and I'll guarantee you that goes in through the locker room. Yeah. Who knows if anybody says anything about it? But it's like, really, dude?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, and that makes me think, when J.D. McKissick, who of course has been out for injury, who had still sounds weird to say, the Seahawks' only rushing touchdown last year by a running back. When he comes back, he does a lot of the same things that pro size can do. Maybe I don't know. Somebody's got to be let go. You got to make room for him somehow. If you're not going to release him, and I think it would be a mistake to release McKissick. He's not going to be first or second down back, but he's going to be able to flank out wide. He's going to be able to run the ball on third down. I mean, he's got tons of speed.
Over McKissick, you're stupid. I mean, that's ridiculous. Because
McKissick, I mean, hopefully this will never happen, but he could return punts or kicks too. If Tyler Lockett were to be injured. So I mean, he has a versatility that maybe even pro size doesn't have. So anyway, that's our show. We think I think we've both written about it in 12th Man Rising staff predictions that we think the Seahawks are going to win, which means they will now lose by 40. Todd Gurley will run for over 200 yards against them, and he's not even going to play in the game, of course, because he plays for a different team. But something weird will happen. But anyway,
Sanders will. Oh, that's right, Barry Sanders. Not playing.
Right. Well, no. Somehow the Lions will have Barry Sanders and Megatron on the field at the same time. Oh, we're still under contract, and then they score like 63 points. Yeah. So, but Kevin, as always, you have the final 2 words.
Go Hawks.